Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And we're the Film Flamers.
That's right. And there are two constants in the springtime. One, people will go off and celebrate the resurrection of Christ. And two,
St. Patrick's Day.
Sorry. Yes. And we go to New Orleans.
For St. Patrick's Day?
For St. Patrick's Day? No. That's a tired holiday. You can drink any day of the year. You don't need green to drink.
But we go there to celebrate all of that is horror film in that pronoun, the most haunted city in that here country, they say, which is New Orleans.
That's right. I'm sure everybody understood that. We are, of course, talking about...
That just so happened to be my verbal exercise before podcasting.
That was your warm-up?
Yes.
We are, of course, talking about the Overlook Film Festival, of which I think this is like our 5th or 6th time to go.
For sure.
I think 5.
Yes, and it is their 10th anniversary.
Yes, it was their 10th anniversary, and I was, expecting a little bit more fanfare for that, but, it's really all about the movies and not about the festival itself, really, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were going to do. They try and get the best program they can regardless, and this year they had, riding in a convertible, Mr. Crypt Keeper himself.
That's right. For the second line, they did have a lot more immersive theater type experiences this year. But, when Chris and I go, we want to give you listeners exactly what you want. And that is all of the unreleased horror films that you have to look forward to for the rest of the year and perhaps even beyond, because some movies that we saw at last year's Overlook either still haven't been released or came out at the early part of this year. So,
yeah, that's right. And sometimes it's even longer or they don't ever come out.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But when we go, we have a schedule that is chock full of movies. A lot of people apparently don't do that. They go to immersive experiences. They go to like opening parties and other parties and trivias and things like that. And we are there for you guys.
That's right.
And some of you guys were there.
That's right. And I'm sure that we will be talking about that a little later in this episode. But we saw a total of like 11 or 12 movies. Yep. And we have a lot to talk about. So why don't we dive into those films? And then we'll give some overall observations and maybe talk about some really cool experiences.
Right. And one of these is, a lot of you will have seen a trailer for this one already, which is called Obsession. And this was our day one first movie at the Britannia Theater on Britannia Street.
Right. Uptown.
And this is directed by Curry Barker of Milk and Cereal. And this releases about a month from now in May. And stars Michael Johnston and Indy Navarrete. Not really household names that I'm aware of, but they've been holding this one a little close to the chest. Mm-hmm. Maybe I just saw a teaser for this ahead of the last horror film I saw in the theater. But anyway, great way to start the festival this year with Obsession.
I completely agree. And this was the opening night film. Right. So Obsession is a movie that premiered at Fantastic Fest in Austin way back last September. And people were just like really, really buzzy about it and saying how good it was. And then it showed at Sundance, and then it showed at South by Southwest. And then we caught it at the Overlook. And I can mirror everyone's excitement about this movie. I thought that it was very, very good. And original in the right places, and the acting was really good. And Curry Barker, for those of you who haven't seen Milk and Cereal, I think he's the director and the actor in that. It's a movie about a serial killer that's kind of found footagey. You can see it on YouTube. I watched it a couple years ago when it came out, and this is his big kind of like film debut, and he is going to, I assume, get lots and lots of accolades for this. This has got a 4.0 on Letterboxd right now.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that much on Letterboxd. I assume that will just go down with the, because everything on Letterboxd, people will just latch on and kill things.
Yes, but I feel like the people who go to film festivals, and that's the people who've rated this movie so far, the people who have seen it are like true film fans. And they have really sort of latched onto it as a really good horror release.
Yeah, and something it would be interesting to deep dive this, I think, because the premise of this is that it's one of those, be careful what you wish for things. He gets a wish. He has, an unrequited love, with, or so he thinks, with one of his best friends, and she, is going through her own life and things. And so he wishes that essentially she loved him more than anyone else. And wacky hijinks ensue. And, we've both seen that episode of Buffy, this is not anything really new. The execution is. And what's interesting is it does kind of start off as kind of that popcorn horror that you would go like Smile or, these other things. And it kind of is in a way still. But they really commit to going as far as this premise can go. And they do not wince. They don't shy away. They show everything. I feel like it would have been easy for them to give us a happy ending or maybe a semi-tragedy ending or like a horrible, like mist-like ending or something. But this ended kind of the way it did, right? And it had to. And it's still funny and it's still horrifying and there's still lots of good jump scares and everything else. It's just a well-made movie.
There were several moments while watching this that I kind of gasped and clutched my décolletage a little bit. And, the movie kept me guessing as to where it was going to go. And to your point, we've seen a story like this before. And so as the movie was starting, I was just like, I hope it doesn't just tread all over ground that's been stompled to death. And it didn't. It really surprised me in lots of places. And most of all, I think, is the acting. I think the two leads in this movie are very, very good.
But especially the girl.
Yes.
That, basically gets the magic dawn.
Indy Navarrete. Yeah. So she is just superb in this movie. As the film festival was moving on, I kept thinking to myself, okay, if I were giving out individual awards for things aside from Best Picture and jury awards that they already give out, if we were going to give out acting awards, I would totally give it to this woman.
Yeah. Some of the shit that she does, and it's not just one note, there's an interesting unevenness to this wish, right? And it's quirky. And there's moments of almost clarity, and it's you have to see her act through that. And there's many moments throughout the film like that. And it's absolutely astounding what she kind of accomplished there. So don't want to say much else without spoiling it. I mean, you can kind of imagine the story, and where it goes, but it is kind of a roller coaster of what happens and when, and there is a sense of inevitability to this, which there should be. But I think it's a really good, especially an audience watch. So if you're going to go to the theater, this is one of those to do it.
And you'll have your chance. This is getting an actual big theatrical release. So
yeah, see this one in the theater. I'm gonna try and see it. Maybe take my sister, take any other horror fans that couldn't go along with us and go.
Yeah, because I also have to remember these movies that we enjoy, we need to go and support them, in some kind of a way, aside from the podcast and watching it at the Overlook. But what did you rate out of 5 stars Obsession?
I think I rated it a 4. And I think I might even push that up on a second watch, just since I'll be the thing, the problems that I had with it were expectation problems.
Yeah.
And maybe on a second watch, that'll kind of go out of the way, and actually my appreciation for it will grow, especially with, paying more attention to what's happening with the acting and what's actually, and so I feel like this is a multi-watch as well. And so, yeah, I rated it a 4. It might go up.
I also gave it 4
to see what happens, as we get closer to the year end and maybe rewatch some of our favorites so that we can kind of form that favorites of 2026.
I've been trying to remember too, previous years of the Overlook and, tempering expectations for things and also tempering my reviews for things. But I think that 4 stars is apt for this movie. I think for me, it would also probably go up on a rewatch.
Yeah. And it almost didn't work in its favor being the first movie that we watched, right? We almost were and some of these ratings are, the third or fourth movie we've seen that day back to back. And it's just sometimes we've rated things like overrated them if they're in a sea of bad movies, or like a bad movie's in a sea of really good movies and we would underrate it, you know? So some of these just we have to see again.
And that's exactly what I mean, is that I was trying to like remember that we're seeing, you know, 11 or 12 movies back to back to back, and they're not all going to be 5 stars, you know? So
in fact, none of them are.
Yeah. This year. Spoiler alert. But the second movie that we watched on day one, directly after Obsession, is a movie that's out now in theaters, and that's called Faces of Death.
That's right. It just came out, I think, this weekend.
Yeah. So
weekend after.
Yeah. The same weekend we were Overlook, it was released.
Strange. Probably limited, right? Or I don't know.
No, I mean, it's playing at the AMC just down the street from us right now.
Yeah. And so the director was there and did explain as well. Of course, this is our second and only watch for opening night, and it happened to be right after Obsession. So didn't do it any favors, but the director was there and did say that they held on to this. The studios held on to this for 3 years.
That's right.
And we're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So the stars Barbie Ferreira and Doc Ray Montgomery of Stranger Things fame. And of course, this is about Faces of Death, the 70s cult classic film about all of the so-called real death, real deaths. But it's, of course, came out, it was all fake. And they know that in this film as well.
Right.
But this guy is trying to get views and everything else, you know, and be a serial killer and, you know, copycat. And it's interesting that there's homage to Faces of Death in the killings, but there's almost more homage to like Copycat, you know, with Sigourney Weaver, the first film we ever deep dove, by the way, episode 1. And maybe some Silence of the Lambs and a couple other things. 7.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of that in this, but it's all kind of a far cry because they really lean out away from the procedural aspects of this and go into like this kind of, you know, Nancy Drew kind of character. And to me, it just did not land.
Yeah, I agree.
It all seemed kind of try hard and a little made for TV and simple as milk, and, you know.
I just feel like I had seen it all before, you know, and I know that they were trying to go for a meta kind of concept involving, you know, the cult classic Faces of Death and its sequels and things, and it just seemed a little unoriginal. And
yeah, and then like that, you know, 3 years ago was probably more fresh, just like, you know, Doc Ray Montgomery and his stardom from Stranger Things. But you know, the whole like validation through views and likes and all that stuff, it just seems so tired, like, and not escapist for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they were trying to say something about social media, especially like TikTok.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And they had some really interesting things to say, just showing her, because the protagonist, her job is literally like to moderate these videos that are being submitted to see if they're banned or if they're let go or if they have an age filter on them. And so she's banning all these like safe sex things and don't do drugs things, but she has to show all this violent stuff. And she's doing that all without batting an eye because that's just how our society works. And that's how we ban things and everything and rate things in American society. And so that was really interesting, but the movie was not about that. It just kind of winked at it. And I was like, well, you shied away from the most interesting part.
I do think that she was kind of an interesting final girl.
Yeah.
You know, I think that because she's flawed in many, many ways and kind of unreliable a little bit. And she certainly doesn't fit the mold of what one would consider to be a final girl. And I found that to be very, very refreshing.
Although they still buried their gays.
They did bury their gays. And I mean,
just like in Copycat.
Exactly. You know, this movie is really copycat-ish.
Except without the really good real estate.
Yeah. It's just but this was also filmed in New Orleans, and I think that was another reason why it was at the Overlook, is because like it was shot locally and there were lots of people in the audience who worked on the film in some capacity.
Yeah.
So what did you rate Faces of Death?
I gave it a 3, but I'm thinking about rating it lower.
I gave it 2.5, so I already did rate it lower.
Yeah. I can't recommend it, and I wouldn't watch it again. But if it sounds like it's up your alley, especially if you really like Doc Ray Montgomery, or you want to see something that was filmed in New Orleans, which is actually not really super apparent, you know, or you like have a lot of interest in the Faces of Death, like mockumentary or whatever the fuck from the 70s, you maybe see it, but like watch it at home, rent it whenever it's or stream it whenever it's out streaming.
A lot of critics like it. You know, I was looking at critical reviews, and they're calling it original, and they're calling, you know, it like a really good meta concept, you know, outside of some of the recent Scream movies, you know. And I didn't get that, but you know, to each their own, for sure. So I mean, if it seems like something you'd like, Chris is right. Go check it out.
Yeah. That closes our day one, which we were excited about.
Yeah, I would say it was a very successful first day. I mean, even at 2.5. I think Chris and I have both rated movies from the Overlook far lower than that. So,
yeah, I want to say like maybe we didn't, you know, rate anything 5 stars this time around, but I think our average score was higher than all the other years probably.
Yeah.
The programming, either our picks were better or like the programming was better or both. But we really had a great time this year overall. Speaking of which, day 2 also kicked off with a banger in Never After Dark, directed by Dave Boyle, has no release date
as of yet. I don't know that this has a distribution company attached to it.
It has a theatrical release date in Japan, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not in America, but it certainly does fit the mold of many of these kind of like artsy horror distribution companies.
Yeah, and I think this one ended up on our schedule because we've had bad luck with foreign films at the Overlook, sucking. And this one had pretty high scores across the board.
It did.
And it seemed like an original synopsis or whatever they teaser for it. I made sure I didn't watch any trailers really, unless I'd already seen them. Like Faces of Death, I think, is the only trailer that I'd seen for any of these. But Never After Dark, we somehow ended up on the schedule, and it reminds me of like the old, like late 90s, early 2000s Japanese horror films like Ringu and Ju-on, The Grudge and The Ring, right? And it's like I picked up a copy of a film that was never released or something then. And it does feel kind of retro a little bit. And it does feel like it was one of those original stories back then. And it feels of that quality, although it does look more modern. But the feel of it is that. It invokes those feelings. It invokes that. And it's actually a very cozy horror film in that way, because it's like a haunting and other thing. And you do feel like you're slipping on like an old comfortable set of house slippers or something, you know, when you're watching this. It is scary. It's original. There's enough, and even if it's not original in moments, like there's something else that's interesting or intriguing going on in an original or interesting way, at least to make it multi-layered. You know, and I find that this one of all the films at Overlook is probably the most recommendable, which is surprising because it's basically the one foreign film that we saw.
Yeah, there's something about this movie that is simultaneously original and completely nostalgic. And you're right. It feels like watching some of those really, really early 2000s, late 90s kind of Japanese horror films. And I think this is kind of remarkable because it's directed by an American English speaking man, who wrote and directed this movie, I think. And he just really, really made something special. You know, it kind of like draws you in with all of its familiarity, but the story itself seems like something I have not seen before in either Asian horror films or even American horror films. There are some moments of this that I thought were just truly, truly original. And this movie is frightening. I would say out of everything that we watched at the Overlook, this is the movie that kind of probably scared me the most or the second most, right? It's right up there with the scariest ones. And it's not the kind of like horror movie that makes you like shriek so much as just feel really uneasy as the story goes along.
Yeah, all of these films of their ilk kind of have a rising sense of dread. And this one definitely has that, although I would say maybe less than like the original Ju-on and Ringu and stuff.
Yeah.
This one, I feel like more than those others, even though it evokes that feeling and it's nostalgic like that, this one I feel feels more like you're curling up on the couch during a rainy day with like a good horror book or something, you know?
No, you're absolutely right. And I feel like even the setting of the movie kind of feels that way.
Cozy.
and
it will probably be on our top 10 horror real estate list.
Oh my gosh, for sure. I mean, I was thinking that the whole time we were watching it. I was just like, well, this is going on the damn list. And like, The thing is that it has such a good premise and it has such a good buildup. You know, it gives away the scary moments at precisely the right time. And it just makes it very, very effective. You know, it's kind of hard for me to gauge acting sometimes in a foreign language film because I'm spending so much time like reading the dialogue, you know, and listening to the inflection, but I don't speak the language, you know, but I feel like the lead actress in this does really, really well. Like she plays a variety of emotions, and there are a variety of emotions within the storyline itself. And I have to say, one killer fucking like rock pop song that's played in this like dancing moment. And like the whole time we were listening to that, I was just like, this song is fucking amazing. You know, and I love a good like pop song featured in a horror movie because they usually are some of my favorite music. And it's
so random too.
Dying to find this song. I have to hear it again.
Yeah, IMDb, update it thyself,
please.
But yeah, this is gonna probably. I would assume this is gonna be in our top 5, if not top 3, for the year. It's a little early to say that since it's not even halfway through the year,
right?
You know, but definitely something that we can recommend easily in the theater, at home, wherever you can see it. Make it a priority if you can see it. I don't know. As soon as we have any kind of news on when it would be streaming, we'll be of course sharing that on socials as well as whatever Shooting the Flames, etc.
So what did you rate this one?
I rated it a 4.5, I believe.
Yes, I also rated it 4.5. I think that this movie is endlessly recommendable. In fact, walking away from this festival, like this is the movie that I think that I would go and tell everyone to watch. I was like, especially if you're a horror fan, and if you're even not a horror fan, I think that there's something here for everyone. I think this is a very accessible foreign horror movie, and I rarely ever get to say that.
I think I would have rated it a 5 if I at the beginning there's some like reverent editing happening that maybe would work on a second watch once you've seen the first one.
Yeah.
Or seen it a first time. But it didn't work for me. Like it was kind of jarring and there was some soundtrack dissonance that didn't seem like it matched the film. At the same time though, its its sound design was really good and memorable. And if we ended up giving like the best sound award at the end of the year, this one would be the highest contender so far.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. We moved on in day 2 to watch our second film that day, and that was a little film called Goody, directed by Raymond Creamer. Also has no release date.
Stupid name.
What, Goody?
No, Raymond Creamer.
He was also there.
But Goody is about a woman who is giving birth in the wilderness by choice with a midwife who she had to basically convince to go out there. The midwife felt bad and guilty that she thought basically, okay, well, even though I refused because I want you to be close to a hospital for this, like I have a feeling you're going to do it anyway, and you're not going to do it with help, you know. So she decided to go out and help anyway. So this is the midwife's story and the story of this woman giving birth, and her husband, her partner, is there, and his sister. So it is a very small cast, single location film. Yeah. You would think that you would really love that, Robert. There is some subtle supernatural Rosemary's Baby stuff going on in this. And the baby may not be what it seems, and the whole situation may not be what it seems. But it holds it close to the vest all the way through the end of credits, and never really shoots its wad. I think it thinks of itself as an A24, and it's just not.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. It felt like a goofy little popcorn horror film that was like dressing itself up as an A24 or prestige film or something. And it had this weird mismatch to it in that way.
Yes. Okay. So you are right. Like this has all the trappings of what would be like something that I would love, right? Because I do love those limited casts and single locations, and this all takes place in like a cabin in the woods in the middle of a blizzard. But there are just some moments in this that I was just kind of like rolling my eyes at. You know, I thought that the acting was really good, and I thought that, you know, some of the concepts were really good, but at the end of the day, I felt like I had just seen it before.
And they tell more than they show, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like something wasn't right with how they told the story visually or audibly or something. They didn't tell us enough, or they didn't escalate properly. The shit that was happening early on that was weird. It almost escalated too soon.
Yeah.
Right. And then we don't actually get any kind of payoff, like at all, really. And I hate that. You know, if you're going to be subtle, supernatural, not explain thing, that's fine, but we need a fucking payoff, you know?
Well, it went from subtle supernatural to in your face supernatural. I think there's a lot of ideas being presented in this movie, probably far too many.
But that in your face supernatural happened at like 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
And then it crescendoed there and then never went back. Like, no. So it's like, why?
I don't, the script is weird. The dialogue, some of it
all over the place. It needed someone to like script doctor that shit.
Yeah, they needed to
kill your darlings.
Reel yourself in, Mr. Writer. I mean, like,
I'm going to have this Shakespearean aside that makes zero sense in the context of the film.
Yeah.
Or in anything else.
There's a fucking soliloquy lifted directly from Shakespeare. And I was just like, okay, you know, some of the supernatural stuff could even be classified as biblical. Like, why aren't you going in front of the Bible? You know, but there's a lot of Shakespearean nods to this, especially The Tempest. And like, I was just like, but why though? And then it would be mixed with these really cool, like flashback kind of moments or like, you know, interior thoughts.
It's kind of poser.
Yeah. And I was just like, you're going to have to pick what you want to be, you know, and sometimes the really good moments outweighed the really bad moments, which I think led to my rating because like I couldn't rate this really high and I also couldn't rate it really low. I was like directly in the middle with this. I gave it 3.5.
That's really high. I feel like that's bound to go down with the kind of complaints that you're having with it.
Yeah, I mean, the more that I think about it, you
have like
now,
foundational problems with this film, and I do too.
I do, and you know, like the thing is that like I walked away from this thinking that it was fine to good, you know, and the more that I think about it now, especially having this conversation, because we didn't really talk about it afterward, you know, like normally we'll leave the theater and have, you know, somewhat of a lengthy discussion between movies. And we didn't talk about this one. And I think that probably says something about the movie itself.
I feel like also like it's got to be some sort of like studio or producer that like made it goody because the only reason why it's goody is because the woman giving birth her name is Goody.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, making me think of like, let's say The Crucible, right? And of course that has like the deal with the devil type of situation, right? So there's that. And like it evokes all of these things, but it doesn't play with anything in its sandbox. It like invokes all these things in the sandbox and then play with them. And it's just like blue balls for the audience for all of that stuff. And I don't like that. I feel like this is such a pretentious like poser movie that it was probably like Much Ado About Demon Baby or something like, you know?
Yeah.
Was probably the original title, but like I can't recommend it. I think it was creepy and had a lot of promise and build up, and then it just deflates like a flan in a cupboard. And I give it a 3, but it's probably going to be lower now that I'm talking about it.
Even if I watch this again, I feel like this movie would operate much, much better as a stage play and not a film.
Yeah.
Because I think that's exactly what he was going for.
Mm-hmm.
Like the writer was going for something very literary and very dramatic as a literary genre. And some of it just didn't translate to film. I think that you could make it far more subtle as a horror production on stage.
It's also one of those movies where you can't make fun of it while it's happening because the whole cast and crew are in the audience.
That's right. We couldn't catcall or just be like, it sucks. Because they're all just sitting there. You know, the one moment that I liked the most involved the score. And that is when like there's this like weird like chanting going on in the score, and then it suddenly crescendos into like goody. And I was just like, oh, what a cool moment. But now that I'm thinking about it again,
spoilers,
yeah,
stupid.
I was just like,
goody. Yeah.
I was like, they said the thing. But yeah, I don't know. When this movie comes out, like I am sure that it will have its fans, you know. So keep it in mind, I guess, if it seems like something that you would like.
Yeah. Next up, we saw something called Drag, and we thought it was going to be like maybe one of those gay movies, right?
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of drag queen, like zombie or vampire movies, right, that have come out recently. And this one's literally called Drag. This is directed by Raviv Ullman, whoever that is, Greg Yolganitzer, as a duo. There's no release date for this, but it stars Leslie Kaplan, who I have a personal grudge against because of the anecdote when she was cast in Cloverfield. And she said she was blind cast, and she accepted, but then found out I was in this stupid little horror film, and I will never work with, that again. And of course, her entire career is now horror.
That's right.
So I'm just like, I've hated her ever since that quote, and maybe I'm even like misattributing it. Maybe I'm misremembering it. Maybe it's not even fucking her. Do you remember if Lizzie Kaplan's in that movie?
In Cloverfield? I don't know, but we're covering Cloverfield this summer, so you'll be able to... I guess
we'll find out, and I'll be embarrassed then. Anyway, I can't be bothered to look that up on the...
Save it for a fun fact.
The CompuWeb. Anyway, this also stars Lucy DeVito, and if you're guessing if that is a relation to Danny DeVito, that is correct. That is his daughter, who also produced this with Danny DeVito and one John Stamos, who also stars. John Stamos of Full House fame.
So, a cast. I mean, like stacked in some era, but right. So it's not about drag queens. It's about the action of dragging.
Yes. And so Lizzie Kaplan and Lucy DeVito are sisters, and they are, for whatever reason, trying to get back at this dude to rob him. And that's how Lizzie Kaplan has convinced her sister, Lucy DeVito, to go along with it.
She's like the getaway driver.
She's the getaway driver. She was never even supposed to go in, but then she hears this horrible blood-curdling scream coming from the house and does not respond on the cheap walkie-talkies that they brought. And so goes to investigate, and lo and behold, Lizzie Kaplan has thrown out her back and can't move. And so has to then drag her through the house as John Stamos' character gets home. Mm-hmm. Wacky hijinks ensue, and there's several twists and turns, and surprisingly gory.
Yeah.
And shockingly funny.
Yep.
Not really scary, but still a horror comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it a horror comedy, a dark comedy for sure. There are many twists and turns in this. It's not at all what I was expecting. I had read that it was a little funny, and I was just like, okay, well, we do like a good horror comedy, and we see a couple every year at the Overlook. They always have, at least one. But I was shocked at how much I laughed watching this movie and how good of a time I had at it.
Yeah, this is probably the next most recommendable film that we saw.
I would agree to lots of people that I know. And the thing is that this is also a very small cast, a very limited location. I like it. And
if you're into Schadenfreude or whatever it's called, if you want to see two sisters basically home alone themselves, this is the film for you.
The dialogue is so good. Like the acting is really, really good. I did the back and forth between Lizzie Kaplan and Lucy DeVito is just excellent. And we all have a very clear picture of who we think John Stamos is and just about everything that he's been in since like his soap opera days. But he's not in this. He's playing way against John Stamos type. And
yet not.
I mean, he's still at the end of the day John Stamos. But to me, I think like one of the standout performances in this movie is like the young Asian actress who shows up sort of like halfway through it. She's just fucking delightful. Like everything about this movie is fun,
Fun, kind of unexpected.
Yes. And like, I think you're right. Like, I think that this is a really, really recommendable movie and
does feel kind of oddly DeVito-ish, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think back, I think he directed maybe 2-3 movies. Mm-hmm. And one of them is War of the Roses. And that's kind of Schadenfreude-ish, with what happens, wacky hijinks, physical comedy, dark black comedy.
Yep.
And this is kind of that. And it's really fun to see these actors play with it. And Lizzie Kaplan went through so much in that movie. I just have to forgive her.
Just a little bit or like fully? I mean,
just a little, I don't know. Like, what a sweet gig though. Like doing comedic lines and then not having to do blocking. Yeah. You're just
getting dragged along.
Now drag me over there, Miss DeVito.
No, she dragged me wrong. Do it again. What'd you rate this one?
I gave it a 4.
Same.
Yeah, it was an easy 4. It might be a go-to fun film, There's some horror comedies that I recommend and sometimes forget about and just like would like to go back to and like slip on. Like one of those old comfy tennis shoes. The first thing that came to mind is that film about the internet star YouTube guy that goes to the haunted house to like redeem himself or whatever, and then gets haunted.
Dead cam. Yeah. I mean, so like horror comedies are comforting.
Yeah.
You know, for real. And I think this is one that I would sit down and watch again. Like this reminds me a lot of like Housebound. You know, I mean, like that kind of vibe of horror comedy, and I'm here for that. So. Definitely keep an eye out for this one. And if we ever get some release information, we'll give it out. However, the next movie that we watched, the last movie on day 2, actually, was also sort of supposed to be a horror comedy, I guess. And there were some funny moments. But it was called The Restoration at Grayson Manor.
Yes. And this is directed by Gillian Murtagh, I guess an Irish filmmaker with mostly Irish cast. There's no release date for this, but it starred Alice Craig. So this was me trying to go see Alice Craig. And every time I've seen a horror movie with her, I'm never disappointed, but it's never great. Ever since she was in like Silent Hill, and then later on she was in Hansel and Gretel and Hansel, which was not great, but still fun, I thought, and good looking. And then, of course, there was one where I think goes to Ireland. And she or Scotland, and she gets into the peat and becomes like a peat witch. Yeah,
that's the one we saw at the Overlook the very first year we went.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was good. And the soundtrack for that was stellar, actually. I need to go back and listen to that. Maybe they have that on vinyl now. But anyway, I try and see my Alice Craig horror films when I can. And
I'm down with that. I mean, I think that she's a great actress. I like her. She has a presence, you know, and she certainly does in this. This movie also stars Chris Colfer of Glee fame.
Man, she would have been such a great, like, Carrie's mother, if that could have happened. But,
well, who's playing the new Carrie's mom?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Carrie Henn.
Off topic. But this movie is, it's a very queer film, as Chris Colfer plays a gay man who is at odds with his mother, who has a problem with his lifestyle. So when he saves her from a oncoming accident and tragically loses his hands, she is there for his restoration and recuperation, and she hires a doctor to create him some like animatronic hands.
Yes, and wacky hijinks ensue. But literally I think there's only 2 good actors in this whole movie, and that is Alice Craig, and then there is a nurse that had to do some bunch of weird airplane shit with drugs.
Yeah.
And by airplane, I mean, like, it's like, it became a shtick. Like, even though the film didn't like lean into that, like, I don't know. The film's a fucking mess. And
it is.
It felt just kind of mean and shallow.
Yep.
And silly and stupid. And I don't like it. And I wish Alice Craig had been given, you know, I can see how on paper, but they surrounded her with actors that couldn't act themselves out of wet paper bag.
For me,
including Chris Colfer.
Chris Colfer was annoying in this movie, and no one's buying that accent. And
what accent?
His British accent. For me, I like gay movies where people are happy being gay. Like I'm done watching the gay movies where like people are sad about it, and we'll have another conversation about a gay thing coming up. But this movie, like, it just seemed really sad and mean and just not good.
We've got to get through all of these like, I hate to say it, like, this guy's Gen X, you know, but there's a lot of trauma still with Gen X and millennial, really, and older. But like the older, they're all directing films now, you know. And it's like, we've got to get through that, I guess, before we can get to some of the more, you know, interesting things. One of the most interesting films that I watched recently about kind of this and acceptance and like life and things like that with kind of gay on the periphery was All of Us Strangers, which is an excellent fucking film that you have to see. And I'd love to watch with you, that deals with this just so perfectly. Versus something like this, if you watch it back to back, you just want to like light this film on fire and watch it die.
Yeah, it started out like sort of like catty and campy and quippy, and then it turned into just something else completely. And I was just like, I don't like any of the characters. I don't really care about any of them.
Yeah.
And mostly I just wanted the movie to be over. And that's not to say that, like, when it comes to the rating for this, there are some salvageable saving grace moments in this that work, that are funny. I don't think it works as a horror movie very well. And I'm kind of mad that they would even call it that.
There's a ghost.
Is there?
Yeah.
I don't remember a ghost.
The nurse sees a ghost.
Okay.
And then at the very end, as it pans out, it shows the ghost in the corner.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't get any of that.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter if you did or didn't. Because it has nothing to do with the fucking plot.
Yeah. It doesn't. I was really hoping this movie would have ended sooner than it did.
This is about this director and whatever shallow shit he wants to say about his experience.
He's working through his own shit, I guess.
He literally said that in front of the audience.
So. He did. Yeah. So
I wish he hadn't said that. Anyway, day 3, let's put this one to bed. Oh, I rated it a 3. Probably it's going to be lower, similar to your score, which is
a 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Day 3.
Yeah. Starting off with the centerpiece film, which was Leviticus. And this was, I guess, advertised to us, or anecdotally at least, with, the gay It Follows.
Uh-huh.
Right. And this is directed by Adrienne Chirella. This comes out on June 19th, starring Joe Bird, Stacey Clausen, and Mia Wasikowska.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say that really? Like Wachowski?
Yeah, I say Wakowska.
Wakowska?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she plays the mother of our main character. And this is solid. It's solid. It's just I feel like it is what it is, and it's not really worth more than the sum of its parts. You know what I mean? It's just really, really confidently made, well acted, good pacing, good story, well written, well filmed, just everything's great, checks all the boxes and nothing more. I felt like they went a little too ambiguous and symbolic with it by the end. I felt like It Follows at least kind of doesn't ambiguously, but kind of at least nods to its own mythology.
Yeah.
Right. This one does not at all. And that's where I found something missing, but I still rated it pretty highly.
I liked this movie. I thought it was good. So it's kind of has the opposite effect for me than Restoration at Grayson Manor, even though it is also kind of a sad ish gay plot.
And what kind of sick stereotype do they have about coming of age gay boys? And violence is kind of the thing. It's all about toxic masculinity, I guess, and getting over and getting past that toxic masculinity in order to push against it and go to the other side, which of course is gay love, but it's just that's such a weird and specific lens. And maybe that's more normal for what the story is, which is a super masculine society in Australia, right?
Yes. Well, the thing is whereas Restoration at Grayson Manor, was dealing with someone, coming to terms with
the toxic feminine gaze, and this is about the toxic masculine gaze.
That character is coming to terms with his own sexuality and dealing with a parent who doesn't agree with it, and he just wants acceptance. This movie is more about coming to terms with your sexuality against a parent who doesn't agree with it. But it just ends differently, and it has a different feel for me. To me, this movie is more romantic than anything that Restoration at Grayson Manor tried to be.
No, this is a much better film.
Yeah, and I feel like I left this movie happier about watching a gay movie than the other one. And I liked the two main characters a lot.
Yeah, I'll have to digest this even more, but it says more about religion and things like that, and being basically religion and bigotry and self-shame and things like that are all kind of layered in to form this kind of nebulous bad guy, this kind of It Follows style villain. But I'm still not sure if I should be insulted or not, not should, but because I don't care what I should or should not. But I don't know if I literally feel kind of insulted by the portrayal of it almost feels like this is gays in the 70s or 60s or something. and then at the same time not. It's kind of inconsistent in that way. Like, but it's also not my society. It's Australia. I don't know what rural Australia is like. Is it weirdly progressive in some ways and like not in others? Like these boys, like they have to push through this like toxic masculinity to accept the gay in them. But when they're actually like publicly seen, they don't seem ashamed at all of it. Like it's really weirdly inconsistent in some ways and then kind of ends ambiguously. It's like it left me wanting more. I wanted a tighter script in that way, some tighter storytelling. But like I said, it's done so well in what it does do that I still rated it highly, and I rated it a 4.
I also rated it a 4. And I think the thing is that like I really liked it as a journey of self-acceptance against all the adversity in the world.
And that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
It's just, it was kind of, they muddied the waters in multiple ways.
And finding true love, and they hang a lantern on lots of things in this movie about how sometimes your first love isn't your forever love, but it's what you have in the moment, And I think there were some moments that really got to me. I cried at the damn end of it for God's sake. And like I would watch this again, and I don't want to give too much more away just because it's getting a big release.
Yeah, I feel like this is a deep dive. They they have this huge sandbox that they've built for themselves with a lot of different meanings, right? But they barely play with those toys. But it makes you think about those things because there's also like something about like be careful who you fall in love with, because you're kind of stuck with that, in a way, and a really interesting way. Visually is done, right? And so I don't know. There's lots of different facets of this to think about, and I would love to deep dive it some June in the future.
Yes, and I will definitely watch it again, but I will have a little space of time before I watch this movie again for sure.
Yeah.
Next up, we saw a movie that is coming out early in May that the internet is just simply abuzz about, and that is Hokum, directed by one of our most favorite recent horror directors, Damian McCarthy.
Yes, he directed Oddity, which was, I think we had stated, and along with, I guess, a lot of other people, one of the scariest films of recent memory, certainly of 2025, 2024, whatever it was. And that was about a blind woman whose twin sister had died, and she's kind of Nancy Drewing the whole situation, and it has an oddities store and brought a life-size, I guess, golem thing,
something similar to that.
Anyway, and then the golem moves, or does it? We don't know. And anyway, Oddity is filled with that kind of dread and weirdness and lots of interesting jump scares, and feels very mature, serious as a car accident, and earns it, Hokum, less so. The stars Adam Scott, so it's a little bit more widespread mint. He got a little bit extra budget. He got an amazing location in this hotel in Ireland. Adam Scott is trying to bury the ashes or spread the ashes of his parents who had honeymooned at this remote Irish hotel. And all is not what it seems at this hotel. I was promised kind of liminal space. There's maybe a little bit of that in this, but not much. There might be hauntings, there might be witchcraft, there might be all of the above. And we get to see whether it is Hokum or not, as they say in the film.
That's right. Damian McCarthy's Oddity played at Overlook, where it won the Scariest Film Award. And we did not watch it at Overlook. Chris caught it in the theater when it had its very limited release, and I watched it at home with him later on. And it's very scary, and Hokum has some really scary moments in it as well.
Yeah.
Not quite as scary as Oddity, but it certainly had me like on the edge of my seat, and I shrieked at least one time.
Definitely has atmosphere.
Yes. I mean, it got a huge lead in from the festival runners who were like, this movie scared all of us when we were screening it. And I was just like, yay. And it did have some scary moments, but I feel like in Oddity, I was just terrified the whole time.
He is a master of his environment and the props that he has in Oddity. And this is almost like it gets a little bit too out of his hands. Like it's just too much for him to really be that precision, surgical with scare. And there's a lot of stuff that he has at his disposal. There's a body, there's a closed room, there's claustrophobia, there's hidden passages, there's witchcraft, but it ends up like, do you want this to be like a Haunting of Hill House kind of thing? Do you want this to be folk tale? It really tries to lean into the folk tale, but then it like kind of goes into this weird, like American style or Western European like haunted situation. And it's like, you can't do all things at once, you know? And so I still really dig this. It is a solid haunted, you know, ghost story, you know, with a twist. You know, it's, you know, our main character is very dour and weirdly unlikable Adam Scott in this film.
Yeah.
Which she's playing against type. It goes towards the character, but is oddly joyless. It's an oddly joyless film.
And yet I want it to succeed when it gets to the theater, you know? I feel like Oddity kind of came out of nowhere at the theater and made way more money than people were expecting. And now all eyes are kind of on this director. And I haven't seen Caveat, which is his first film, which I really want to watch. And I know that he's already planning his next movie, you know, so there's buzz, and people will go and see this even for just Adam Scott alone. So
yeah. And they'll say Oddity, which is, you know, probably had a sleeper hit kind of status on streaming after people were and people saw it in the theater. I remember it played longer than I thought it did.
Sure did.
In the theater, you know, but there's some parts of this where like there's some reveals and things like that don't really feel like twists so much as like ho-hum. And to the point where I might call this movie Ho-Hum instead of Hokum.
Ho-Hum?
Now that I think about it.
Damian McCarthy's Ho-Hum. Would you rate it?
I still rated it pretty highly out of 4.
I also gave it a 4. I thought that it was enjoyable and scary and a good watch.
And I want to see it again.
Same.
Yeah. To see if maybe this is like, because it's just one of those where, you know, we came out of Leviticus and had high expectations, you know, and we rated them both pretty highly, but, you know, I don't know.
I think both of these movies deserve those ratings. You know, I think that they are good enough to recommend. I think they're good enough to watch again, and I think they're good enough to talk about.
Yep.
And I think that puts it square into like the 4-star range for sure. Our next film we watched on day 3, closing out day 3, was not a horror movie. The Overlook this year had a little side gig going on of sorts called Side Shows, where it was genre films for horror fans. And the genre of choice for these 3 movies that they chose was action. So we caught Normal.
Yeah, and I'm a big Bob Odenkirk fan from, you know,
Nobody.
The show.
Oh, what was that show?
The show. Whatever that show was, you know.
Better Call Saul.
Yeah, and he used to write for SNL.
I didn't know that, really.
No, I mean, like his show, he had like a variety show.
Oh.
With another dude. I forget what it was called. Anyway, it was like
Mr. Show with Bob and
Mr. Show.
Yeah. Okay.
And before that, he was a writer on SNL. He probably did some writing, like, you know, he came up with the Ilk of Conan and, you know, and the others. You know, and he wrote for like Chris Farley and those folks. And then later on got his own show. And then later on he was cast in these other roles. And eventually, you know, the creator of Breaking Bad, who cast Bryan Cranston, you know, he has a thing for finding comedic actors because comedic actors sometimes have the best dramatic acting because of their range. Mm-hmm. And so he had cast Bryan Cranston, who had never really done dramatic roles. He was always in comedic roles, except that he had cast him earlier in one episode of X-Files, which he did an amazing job in. And so that was based on his performance there, where he got that gig. And because of that, you know, Bob Odenkirk was also a comedian and did such a good job as the lawyer in Breaking Bad that he gave him like a prequel series called Better Call Saul, mm-hmm. which of course was, you know, as good or better than Breaking Bad. If you like competence porn, both those shows are kind of about that, right? Just showing someone, you know, go through all these risks, maybe overshoot, you know, but they're still like the best at what they do, you know. Breaking Bad guy being great at science, you know, and this guy being great at law, you know. Anyway.
Well, he made the unlikely transfer to action film.
He did. And he transferred into the same universe as John Wick.
Yeah.
You know, with an Atomic Blonde, with Mr. Nice Guy, which is or nice guy or normal guy, nice guy, nobody. Mm-hmm. Sorry, no more Mr. Nice Guy was the subtitle, I think. Nobody was great. Normal was approaching that, and this was actually a story by Bob Odenkirk, and it stars Lena Headey and Henry Winkler of all people, and it's kind of fish out of water. He plays the sheriff who goes to this place in Michigan, Minnesota, whatever, called Normal. And he is the interim sheriff there because something had happened to the previous sheriff. It kind of plays like that Werewolf Within film that we liked. Kind of a little bit of a comedy, action, thriller, comedy, horror, but less horror, more thriller and comedy. But not all of it kind of lands, and I feel like it really should have either leaned into the horror gore action, or it should have leaned into the comedy, or both. Leaned into something. Give me something more. Give me more fucking flavor. Very good film, entertaining. Certainly great moments of laughing out loud and going, oh shit, with the gore and violence, but nothing super, super special there.
I thought it was good equal parts comedy and action, right? Mm-hmm. I think that the funny parts made me laugh quite a bit, and the action parts really had me enjoying it. There's no shortage of exploding heads and things in this movie, and that's exactly what I like to see in my action films. My problems with this movie is that it took a long time for it to become a good comedy and a good action movie. And then by the time
it ever did.
And by the time that it even got close to that, I was just already done with it, kind of.
It did seem kind of paint by numbers by the end of it, and just almost like a vehicle. Like they were trying to recreate their own version of Mr. Nobody or Nobody, and Nobody 2 has come out. So he already has a franchise, So it's just lean into that.
Yeah, I think this movie was made to satisfy a very specific crowd of people, and while I can see why they would show it at the Overlook, I don't know how I feel about this sideshows thing, and that's to say there were two other action movies, and we flirted with seeing both of the other two even.
Well, if you're going to do that, make it more horror adjacent, we basically trademarked horror adjacent, right, on this podcast. And if you want to show some drama or sci-fi or action, that has horror beats to it, please. But this is way out there.
I kind of feel like that. I think the same studio brought all three of these movies, these sideshow quote unquote movies. And I think that as a partner to the festival, they were like, here, you have to show these. Cause I think they only got one showing. So,
or they're just trying to give us, more variety or other things and other, put us on the map, I don't know what happened, but people seem to enjoy it.
It was a fairly full screening. I mean, people wanted to see this. They showed up for it, and it's coming out with presently in April. So you'll have your chance to see Normal as it comes out on April 17th. What did you end up rating it?
3.5.
I gave it 3. I thought that it was, a solid, enjoyable movie.
Yeah. But if I'm going to recommend something, I'm going to tell them to see Nobody, or I will go see Nobody 2.
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend this unless they really liked those and they're looking for more.
Unless you just really like Minnesota. Yeah. Or something like that.
That's another thing. They didn't do the goddamn accent very much.
You were really hoping for that accent in a couple movies, right? Especially the next one that
everything's set in Minnesota.
Well, the next one that we saw, which opened up day 4, didn't take place in Minnesota, but Wisconsin. But still in that same neck of the woods.
Which was Chili Finger, directed by Ed Binda and Stephen Helstad. There's no release date to this, but it stars Judy Greer and Sean Astin and John Goodman and Bryan Cranston.
It is a stacked fucking cast, y'all.
It really is. And they're trying to go for this Coen Brothers thing.
For sure.
But lean a little bit more into comedy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically the premise, is... just like The Dude or whatever the fuck that movie was called by the Coen brothers.
Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski. There is a finger that is missing. And so it's kind of an ode to those types of movies, right? But this is, and it has good writing, good film, good story, good, all that stuff. The acting is amazing, especially by Bryan Cranston.
Agreed.
John Goodman doesn't have as much to do.
He's still good, though.
But he's still great to see.
Yeah.
Sean Astin, made me really annoyed with him and then feel sorry for him.
That's right.
And then Judy Greer does the best job she can with this and is convincing. But almost no character in this film is someone that you would root for. That's a problem there. I feel like in a Coen Brothers movie, we get some sort of audience proxy. This movie, to me, maybe if I was a empty nester mom, but I am not. And that is such an oddly specific audience. Like, and I don't know that's the audience that's going to watch this or want to watch this film. And like, I just don't see an audience proxy here. And that removes us from the story a little bit, from this style of story. And I think that's his problem.
I mean, I liked its execution. I mean, like ultimately this movie is about you, like listeners. Do y'all remember a couple of years ago when someone found a finger in their Wendy's chili?
Yeah.
Right. And then there was all this talk about whether or not they placed the finger in there. Well, that's this movie, but it's expanded upon. And it does turn very, very Coen Brothers-y. The thing is that even though there are likable characters within Coen Brothers movies, some of them shouldn't be likable. Like everyone's flawed in a Coen Brothers film, and people are flawed in this. The thing is that like some of the acting though is just so fucking superb. Bryan Cranston does an amazing job. Again, if we were giving out single awards for things, especially for acting, best supporting actor all the way would go to Bryan Cranston. Mm-hmm. I think that Judy Greer does a really good job in this too, although I always find myself liking Judy Greer a lot. You know, like there's...
Yeah, but like she deserves everything that's coming at her after this. So like I was so annoyed with her by the end.
And she gets some level of comeuppance, you know, throughout the movie. And the thing is that like they were going for kind of a mystery thing with twists and turns, and the twists just weren't very twisty for me.
Or they revealed them too fast.
Yes. Or, you know, even after the reveal, they just moved on to the next upcoming twist.
And then the film just kind of ends.
Yeah.
Just kind of ends. Right. And so I'm probably going to actually lower my score for this. I rated it a 4 just because it was such an interesting romp and was well written and really well acted. And I could recommend it for people that are kind of trying to scratch an itch that's missing from like Fargo or, you know, one of these other like Coen Brother films, you know. And, you know, I think I'll probably reduce it maybe on a second watch to 3.5. But I rated it a 4.
I gave it a 3.5, and I think mostly because of the acting and the script. I thought that it was funny, and you know, the director was saying how long it took to make this movie, and you know, writing something way back in, you know, the pandemic, and then getting all these people attached to it for such an independent kind of film is no small feat, you know. And so I think that these people read the script and they saw something in it. And I'll give it another chance and we'll see what my rating turns into. But for me, it was just like solidly like good.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So the next movie that we attempted to see on day 4 was called Cramps, a period piece. But there were some technical difficulties that we were not able to complete this movie, although we saw a good fucking chunk of it. It was directed by Brooke H. Sellers, who directed maybe one of the only short films that we've ever liked at the Overlook, and that was Violet Butterfield, Beautician of the Dead, or something like that.
Which they should have done a feature-length version of.
Yes, and this is sort of like reminiscent of the vibe of Violet Butterfield. It's very campy. It looks very retro. It's very John Waters-y and very, very queer. But by the time they got the ball rolling and the sound and everything working just fine, we had to scamper away to see the final movie that we caught at the Overlook, mostly because I think that we were looking forward to it quite a bit. I certainly know I was.
Right, and that was Buddy. This is directed by Casper Kelly, none other than the guy who directed Too Many Cooks, if you're aware of that Adult Swim opening to a sitcom that never ends.
That's right.
That turns into a horror film, basically. And then later on, the film that we put on our top 10 for that year, I believe.
Yeah, we did.
Pretty highly, was the Yule Log, Adult Swim's Yule Log.
What a shocking addition to our top 10 that was that year. Mm-hmm. I did not have that on my fucking bingo card. And I loved that movie so much. And I just really wanted to go see Buddy.
And it is such a specific brand of like nostalgic horror comedy.
Yep.
That no one else... Like this had that same feeling of Too Many Cooks and Yule Log to it. It has such a distinctive voice in horror with this guy. And I just can't wait for all of the other movies that he does. But Buddy is essentially, what if Barney was like a multi-dimensional like demon that was like trapping kids in the TV show.
It's so fucking weird.
And needed to restore himself via the rolling credits and restarted the episode.
That's right.
Like and everything that happens there. And so that's the premise. And I've probably already given too much away, by that. But that's basically the premise. And there's a lot of like ins and outs and twists and turns and caveats to that are interesting. I don't know that they went far enough with it. Or Muppety enough with it, but they're pretty Muppety. I don't know.
I think it was plenty Muppety.
Yeah, yeah, and they did such a good job making it look like it was like one of those 80s, 90s, kids TV shows.
It was like equal parts Barney and fucking Pee-wee's Playhouse. It looked so spot on to watching those things from like when I was younger. And you haven't spoiled too much because this movie had its premiere at Sundance. And everyone fucking loved it, right? And so, like,
despite Topher Grace
being in it, and it also played at South by Southwest, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they have to add it to the lineup at Overlook. I was hoping, and then they did with its second wave announcement. I was like, yes, thank you God, and it didn't disappoint. This movie is really, really fun. It's really weird. It's like its own brand of horror that just works. And I feel like everybody in that audience was having just such a good time watching it. And I feel like when this movie gets a release, it's going to be completely misunderstood by like the lay people who would just go see a horror movie. But like ultimately, I think this movie is...
Yeah, it's a horror movie for horror movie fans.
Yes.
Right? And so was Yule Log, really.
Yes.
Yule Log is specifically like every fucking genre of horror in one movie. And then of course, this is basically him making a feature-length version of Too Many Cooks, in my opinion. Because by the end of that, like people are getting meta and like running around and like seeing their names. Like you can see their cast names through like the closet window, glowing or whatever.
That's right.
And that's how the serial killer is finding them and stuff. And so it's not quite meta like that in this, but it's kind of in that same universe where there's something going on kind of meta to create this weird world it's inside your TV essentially.
And if not meta, it's certainly referential, and I think that it pays like the most loving homage to things, and I cannot wait to see what else Guess What Kelly does.
Stay tuned again.
Oh, I love that movie.
They go to but they can go and like switch the channel or whatever and go to all these different shows, right? Versus this was all just one show.
Right. Stay Tuned is a really good movie. And it's Satan in that kind of ish, right? Yeah.
Satan played by a pedophile?
Oh, you're right.
Well, it makes sense.
What'd you rate Buddy?
I believe I gave it a 4.
I gave it 4.5. Like it was real close to giving this movie 5 stars, but then I was just like, it's not quite there.
Yeah, I might have rated it higher if it had kind of brought it home a little bit more. I did actually like how it ended, but I didn't like what happened to a certain character in that I was invested in. So immature of me for not liking that.
No, it's fine.
But also I felt like I wanted something, I don't know, I just wanted a little bit more, and it's just the Topher Grace of it all made it all less for me. As soon as he did the screen, just lost the whole star for me.
Oh my God. I don't dislike him that much, but
I don't know what it is. Topher Grace, just he can fucking die.
But he killed the wrong people.
He did.
Definitely go check this out because it will get a release this year, and I fully hope that people go and embrace this kind of movie because it was good.
Yeah.
So. That is to say, there's a lot of movies that we didn't catch at the Overlook. Obviously, we cannot see them all. I know that some of the movies that we missed that we're kind of looking forward to would be something called like Buffet Infinity, which looks really odd.
Yeah, kind of experimental, but the whole thing is just like commercials, right?
Yeah, told through commercials. There was another world premiere there this year called Monster or Trauma All or something like that, which we didn't see because it was part of like a whole quadrilogy of films.
A couple of those where it was like a in a series or it was a sequel to something. And I was just like, that doesn't feel accessible.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it.
We will eventually see some of these movies as they start to get release dates, but there's only so many things that we could see at the Overlook. But I would say overall, like this year's festival for their 10th anniversary was a success. They had a great lineup of films, things that I would have seen if we had room to put them into the schedule. I feel like as an organization and their logistics of the festival has gotten just better and better each year.
Yeah, last year they were a fairly well-oiled machine relative to previous years, and this year they continued that trend.
Yep.
And were seemingly themselves less stressed out.
Yep. Everyone seemed to be having a good time.
Yeah.
And aside from like just that one or two like minor technical difficulties, I mean, like they are putting on a really good festival that is just growing in popularity year over year. And I'm really glad that we've been able to sort of like partner with them in some capacity. There's a lot of press there every single year, and I think that's also speaks pretty highly of them that people just want to keep coming back to this festival. So as always, guys, we encourage you to go to the Overlook as one of our listeners did. So we have to give a special shout out to Bear, one brother of Nikki, who we were able to meet up with one day after he had seen some movies and we were out of a movie, sporting some of our Film Flamers merch. And he has given us lots of comments and feedback about some of the movies that he's seen. So perhaps on a Shooting the Flames, we'll be able to throw some of those emails and comments your way.
Along with hopefully some release dates.
That's right. So, and hey, Nikki, you should come next year too.
Yeah.
Do it. Well, guys, we've been talking a lot about our ratings for the Overlook films that we've seen. Just as a reminder, head over to Letterboxd and follow the Film Flamers, and also follow Chris and I individually so you can see all of our ratings, because we watch other things besides the things that we talk about the podcast, and we make lists and whatnot. It's a good place to go and check out all the things that we're watching. Go and look for us on social media at The Film Flamers, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on Threads.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call our hotline at 972-666-7733.
Well, Chris.
Well, Robin.
I am still incredibly tired from that long-ass film festival movie marathon.
My eyes are shot with blood.
And we need to go off and get some rest and have some sweet dreams,
but never after dark.
That's the best time for having sweet dreams. Also during the day.
Ho hum.